Hey everyone, it's Venom. I've had a lot of requests to cover the experimental throw settings in Echo Arena, so for those of you who are new to the arena and are struggling to line up your shots, this video is going to discuss how these settings can be adjusted to fit your throw style. Now before we get into this, I do want to clarify that these settings are custom to the individual. Everyone's throw is unique, and just because these work for me doesn't mean that they will translate well over to you. This is more to act as a guide and to explain how each setting affects the release of your throw, and with that, let's go ahead and get into it. First, we need to locate these settings in the menu. Start by holding the menu button on your left controller until the menu screen pops up. Select Settings, and then navigate through until you land on the Gameplay Throwing Settings screen. This is where all throwing adjustments will be made. We're going to start with the experimental throwing first, as this is going to determine how the disc is released according to the sensor tracking. There are three options here: off, predictive, and latest sensor data. Now, my knowledge of how these settings works is mostly community informed and not directly from Rad, so I do want to credit Phenom for his assistance. Starting with off, this is going to be standard to how the game has been since release on Quest. Predictive uses the raw sensor data and then tries to make a prediction for the trajectory. And latest sensor data reads the raw sensor input data as accurately as possible and ends up taking the last point before the sensors lose tracking. Now, all of these are going to depend on your throw technique and where the sensors lose tracking of the controllers. Once you've tested the three and have landed on the option that best matches your style, it's time to move into fine-tuning. So let's start with input grab. This is going to determine how far in the grab button on the controller needs to be pressed in before the grab is initiated. This isn't relevant for throwing, but useful if you find yourself struggling with regrabs or accidentally getting caught on geo because your palm has slightly pressed the button in. Input release, however, is much more relevant to throwing accuracy. The higher this number, the later your hand will release an object. I've personally always felt that the release point on Quest headsets is already late, so I would start at 0 or 0.5 and work forward until it feels comfortable. Just be aware that if you start running into the issue of dropping the disc, adjusting this value a little bit higher will help. Lastly, wrist angle is a setting that was added to assist those of us who needed a lower release point than 0. There are some guesses that due to hardware limitations in the controllers, it's impossible to get it comparable to CV1 levels of release. Therefore, the wrist angle is another way to adjust the trajectory of your throw release. This option starts at 0 and can be adjusted positive or negative. Positive will cause your throw to rise, and negative will make it drop. Additionally, the setting can be used to add a little more power to your throw, which is why some players keep this around the max of 45 to hit those 19 meter per second shots. So here are the settings that I use when I play on Quest 2, and you can start there and adjust them as needed. I keep my input grab at 17.5%, input release at 2%, wrist angle at 33%, and latest sensor data for my experimental throwing. These settings seem to favor overhand throwing, and you may notice sidearm shots fading to the right a little bit because of the wrist angle. Try adjusting some of these settings to find that perfect release point. If you've been struggling with throwing in the game, I hope this helps, and I'll see you in the arena.